Just hours after a meeting with a Canadian delegation to talk CUSMA renewal, the Trump administration is proposing new tariffs on dozens of countries, including Canada. They would target specific products the White House argues are made with forced labor. The U.S. Trade Representative proposed the new duties last night. Some observers believe this is a new strategy to replace global duties struck down by the courts. Now, if these tariffs are implemented, some Canadian goods could face an added 10%, but notably not those that are CUSMA-compliant. Let's bring Marianne into this because a key distinction here is around the way in which they're justifying this. Take us through the forced labor investigation.
Well, it is also, as you noted, important to highlight the fact that these are just proposed tariffs right now, and they come after an unfair trade practices investigation by the U.S. administration. That all began in March, and as a result of that investigation, they say that 60 countries, including Canada, did not do enough to properly enforce any rules to prohibit the sale and trade of these goods that were made with forced labor, and as a result, we're now hearing about these proposed tariffs. Now, looking at the timing of this, we know that Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc was in Washington yesterday meeting with trade representatives, talking about CUSMA and other trade-related things between both nations. But he did comment on the fact that this was not unexpected coming out of these investigations.
It's not a surprise that the United States initiated these investigations. We have made submissions to the United States that we think are very significant in addressing the concerns that the United States has raised for a number of months or a number of conversations that we've had with the Americans.
Canada does, of course, have its own rules when it comes to prohibiting the sale of goods that are made through forced labor. But the United States saying as a result of this investigation, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So if a raw product, for instance, or a raw material came into Canada and we used it to make a product that potentially that could face a new tariff if these tariffs go into place. What products are we talking about?
Well, these are products that are made in certain sectors and certain countries where the issue of forced labor has been raised in the past. So in Canada, we've gone through the document. There's about a dozen or so items that have been highlighted there. Things like rice, coffee, fish, even tobacco. Those have all been listed there.
Okay. What happens if, in fact, forced labor was used to make some of those materials?
So as a result of this investigation, we go now back to these proposed tariffs. 10% for about 15 countries, including Canada. That also includes Mexico, Taiwan, the European Union.
Yeah.
They would all be slapped with this. 45 other economies would be faced with a 12.5 additional tariff based on this investigation as well.
Where we're different from, say, the European Union is we have CUSMA. We have this trade deal, governs most of our trade. Does that protect us?
Yes, it does. And so it would exempt them from these additional tariffs, which is why following all of the developments with tariffs is confusing if you're not following it every single day. It is a bouncing ball, and it is hard for many people to keep track of. CUSMA-compliant goods would be exempt. That has been the case with most of these types of tariff developments: lumber, automobile steels, those types of things.
It was Trump's trade czar, Jamieson Greer, who was meeting with Canada's Dominic LeBlanc just yesterday. Then he put out this report. What is he saying about it?
Well, he also put out a statement, and that was posted on social media. I'm going to read you a portion of what it says. It says, "The failure of our most important trading partners to address the importation of goods made with forced labor is unacceptable. This creates a dynamic where American workers are forced to compete globally on an unlevel playing field." He goes on to say, "We will no longer tolerate this disparity."
Okay. Tariffs, a lot of people will remember the U.S. Supreme Court struck down many of Trump's tariffs. And some observers think this is in response to that.
Yeah, because we haven't seen new tariffs coming out of the White House since that was all struck down. Those Liberation Day tariffs, if you recall, back in February, it was then struck down by the Supreme Court in April. So since then, the Trump administration has been trying to rebuild the tariffs. So looking at the timeline here, there are some public consultations. That's going to happen on July 6th, and then a public hearing on these proposed tariffs on July 7th. So we'll see what the feedback is there. But again, Canada says this is not a surprise.
Not a surprise, but Canada could once again be in the firing line. All right, Marianne, we'll monitor this. Thank you very much.